Well, what a weekend of boxing it has been. But before I get into it, obviously we've just heard the news. Ricky Hatton has just died at the age of 46. Probably one of the best boxers this country has ever produced, in my humble opinion. Loved the way he fight, loved his tenacity, loved his grit, loved his just, and everything that lots of people always said about him as a person outside of the ring, where he was like, he had his issues, had his problems, after boxing, of course, we all know that. And also in between fights, he would, he would pile on the pounds, and he liked to drink and all that kind of stuff. But listen, his achievements in the ring, those fantastic achievements. I just love watching him fight. I love that kind of attitude in anybody. Never give up, get in there with anybody, always give it a go. And if you come up short, you come up short. But he only came up short against the very, very best, the elite in the world. He was at that level. Ricky Hatton, for me, was just absolutely an amazing fighter, an amazing role model, an amazing boxer, amazing everything, really. So, thoughts and prayers out to the family, Hatton family, of course. And boxing has lost a real one there, and at such a young age, and it just shouldn't happen. Really shouldn't happen. I mean, at this stage, as they're making this video, I don't know, what the cause of his death was, unfortunately. So let's get back to the boxing, right? I suppose this is where I have a bit of admission here, where I say I obviously can't pick fights, because I got them completely wrong. Well, kind of wrong. Let's start off with Donovan against Crocker on earlier Saturday night, or Saturday night normal time for us here in the UK. I was convinced that Donovan was going to win. I thought he schooled him really in the first fight. And I thought he was going to pretty much do the same. I thought he was going to put him away within 5-6 rounds, if the truth be known. But no. Crocker came out, and I think the scorecards were right. I think it was I don't know where Donovan was really in this fight, in all fairness. So yeah, look, I got that wrong. I mean, obviously I'm going to be talking about Canelo and Crawford more. The other fight I wanted to quickly talk about, Inoue against Akhmadaliev. It went the distance. It was I think the scorecards again were right in favour of Inoue, but he was scoring. He was a lot more at Akhmadaliev. He was winning virtually every round, every other round. Certainly I'd probably give 2 or 3 rounds at Akhmadaliev, but that's about it. Probably not even that, really. And I thought another fucking monstrous display. The monster, great. The only thing it lacked was a knockout. But in terms of performance, fantastic once again. Against a really dangerous fighter, I thought Akhmadaliev was. And he proved it. He proved that he could stay in there with the monster. And not many fighters can do that, right? So, fair play to him for getting in there, making a good fight of it. I thought it was a decent fight as well. Good stuff, good, from both fights. But the class above of Inoue was fantastic. We've got to see now who Inoue can fight next. If there's going to be a big Riyadh season fight card for him. There's talk of him, having another one in January or December, I should say. Can he have one in December? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. He usually has one around about New Year's anyway, doesn't he? So whether they just tie that in with that sort of timing, we'll have to wait and see. But fantastic against from Inoue. I thought he was going to take Akhmadaliev around about 6 or 7. I think I predicted that. But he won, so I suppose I got that right, but I didn't think it would go the distance. So I suppose I got that wrong as well. So, give me half a point there for that. The Donovan Crocker fight, I got it completely wrong, so 0 point on that one. But obviously we're going to talk about Canelo against Crawford. Look, he just completely dominated Canelo, in my opinion. He completely dominated him. And this is where I got it completely wrong, because I thought, this was my thinking, and I predicted the Canelo KO, TKO, 6th, 7th round, something like that. And I said it, but I also said, alongside that, I said Crawford could win this, but he'll go the distance and he'll go on points and he'll have to just box on the outside, box on the back foot, pick him apart, point him all the way through. So I suppose I got that right, but that wasn't my final prediction, right? But actually, that's how it happened. But I thought around 6 or 7, Canelo would be faced with this. He would be outboxed, and then he would suddenly come alive, and his power that Crawford wouldn't be able to take. But how wrong was I? Because Crawford could take it. He could take Canelo's power. And, but at the same time, Canelo did start to come alive in those later rounds as well. So I love the way Canelo was always hunting him down, always on the front foot, just, coming forward. But, Crawford was just too good. He was just picking him apart. It was just, combinations, that left upper hook as well. That kind of rocked Canelo a couple of times, I thought. Well, certainly he was caught off balance a couple of times, Canelo, I thought. I don't think Crawford was ever really hurting him. It didn't appear to me that he was getting really hurt. But I think he was wearing him down. And I just don't think Canelo could get close to him enough to get those rounds back. I would be... for me, it was a 9-3 fight. Okay, possibly an 8-4. Maybe some of the work in those later rounds, possibly an 8-4. But granted, a couple of those early rounds, I thought they were much of a muchness really. But look, it's interesting because you would think that's obviously Crawford coming up, and there's a lot. I wasn't making anything about the weight and the size in what I was saying. What I was saying is about punch resistance. And what I was saying that Canelo, obviously he's been at that weight. He could take that weight and he could deliver that kind of power at that weight class. Where I was convinced that Crawford, not necessarily where he couldn't deliver that power. And I think I'm right in that because he couldn't knock over Canelo. But then again, nobody's ever knocked over Canelo, so his punch resistance, Canelo, is still there. Is absolutely still there. But I just didn't think he would be able to withstand Canelo's punches. I just didn't think Crawford would have that punch resistance, and he obviously did. Now it's either an indictment on Canelo hasn't got that punch power, or Crawford could really take it. So look, it wasn't all his own way. I didn't think. I think there were moments, and I got to say it was moments that Canelo was really getting in there and having some, there's some good exchanges. He was catching Crawford quite a lot within certain rounds, and especially when he started to wake up and pile on the pressure, as I thought he would be in the back half of the fight. I thought that that was really decent. I say I love the way Canelo kept on going forward. I love the way Crawford was, moving and on the back foot a lot, working off the jab a lot, and the way he was doing, they were both sort of feeding each other out. They were both acknowledging each other a little bit. I think they were both, Crawford was, having a bit of fun in there as well, so, they were giving a good fight, I think, and they gave a good account of themselves as well. So I think, for me, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but for me, this sets it up beautifully for a second fight. I know lots of people would say, Crawford's just schooled him. Of course, it's outboxing. But I just think it sets it up for another great fight. And I don't know if there's any rematch clauses in it, but I wouldn't be surprised. I think there'd be a greater call for anybody if Canelo had schooled Crawford and say, look, we don't want to see it again, because you don't need to see somebody getting schooled who's just coming up. You've proved your point. You come up at 3 weight divisions. You just haven't got it. So go back down or do whatever you need to do. But because he has, and he's beaten Canelo, I think there's a great call for a rematch to say, well, can you do it again? Is there something that Crawford needs to do, Canelo needs to do, change next time to be better? Because he's proven to himself that he can take Crawford's punches. He's got the punch resistance there to deal with him. What he's got to be able to do is bully him a lot more and increase his punch power just to really upset Crawford. I'm not saying this will make any difference whatsoever, but I'm saying there could be a justification for a rematch based upon that. I'd love to see it again. I'd love to see another one. I'd love to see another 12 rounds between these two, I've got to say. I think I would love to see another fight between these two more than any other fight between any of these two and another fighter. I don't think Crawford and another fighter sells. Canelo will sell anywhere. right? Even though he's just been beaten, he will sign anyway. In fact, there'll probably be even more intrigue now because he's just been beaten by Crawford, and whomever he fights next, there's going to be a massive clamour to watch him and see how he does. But, you know, I think Crawford's just got paid 50 million. Canelo's just got paid 150 million if these reports are true. Well, they could easily command that again. To get these two back in the ring, they could easily command it again. And dare say, I mean, obviously it's not a pay-per-view model on Netflix, but the money that they can throw at it, the money that Saudis can throw at it is just insane. And I don't know what the viewing figures on this is going to be, but it's going to be in the millions. It's got to be in the multiple millions here. And whether it's crossed over into the main, sporting consciousness, or whether it's just boxing fans and transient boxing fans that are really, locked into this, or whether, guess what, it is purely Netflix fans just saying, oh, that's a boxing match, let me watch that, type of thing. But I just feel that this fight is ripe for another round. That's all I've got to say. I just think it's ripe for another fight. I would really love to see what tactical changes that Canelo can make to get closer to Crawford. And that's what I think. Look, we've had it with, I suppose, if you're talking about tactical fights, and you look at something like Beterbiev-Bivol, where Beterbiev, I thought he won the first fight clearly. Second fight, I thought Bivol clearly won it. So if you've got, now I think there's greater distance here between Crawford and Canelo than Beterbiev and Bivol on the first fight. But I still feel that in the second fight, Canelo could come back, learn from his mistakes, and get in there and get closer to him and bully him. But I think he can only do it one way. We know he can't outbox him. We know he can't outmove him. We knew that anyway, that it wasn't going to be that kind of fight. But he needs to get in there with greater punch power, I think, because he's got the punch resistance. He can definitely take Crawford's weight. Let us know your thoughts on that. But I got my picks wrong. What can I say? I got it wrong. It is what it is. Donovan, I thought would win. He didn't. Canelo, I thought he'd win. Back half of the fight with a TKO. I thought his punch power would be too much. He didn't. And Inoue, I thought he'd get a win by KO in 6 or 7, but he didn't. Akhmadaliev, yeah, I did say it was going to be a close fight. I did say that Akhmadaliev would be, he's probably one of his toughest opponents in a long, long time. And yeah, he's proven to be right. Great fighter, great competitor. But who next for Inoue? Who next for Canelo and Crawford? I'd love to see them together. Who next for Crocker? Where does Donovan go from here? Do they have a rematch on this? Does Donovan think, I should have done a lot better there. I should have done a lot better there. What was going on in his camp, in his head? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But listen, a final word on Ricky Hatton. 46, too young to die. 46, way too young to die for anybody. And, for an elite boxer, elite sportsman that he was, for the man that he was, just way too young. Sad loss in the boxing world. Boxing fraternity, I'm sure, would feel it a lot. But boxing world, fans, just from a fan's point of view, great. Fantastic he was. Absolutely fantastic. And it makes you wonder why so many boxers don't have that Ricky Hatton spirit within them. Do you know what I mean? To actually go out there and put it all on the line and just keep on going forward and scrap away and, body shots and that signature sort of grunt every time he'd let one out. It's just brilliant. Loved watching it. And that's why so many fans latched onto him. That's why so many fans travelled all around the world just to watch his fights. Because they knew they were getting the real deal with Ricky Hatton. That was the thing. They were getting the real deal. And that's why he's always had so much respect in the boxing world, not only for his achievements, but the manner in which he achieved those things. And him as a person, there we go. If you like what I do here, keep on watching, and I'll catch you again. Bye now.